in-home, when it comes to the in-home, I like to keep things very, very simple. Um, Basically, now have you booked any appointments yet or nothing yet?
No.
Okay. So the in-home, making sure that your closing ratios are in line, they start with the phone calls. Okay. Everything comes down to what you actually say to the customer. There are a lot of elaborate scripts out there online and everywhere. I like to keep it very, very simple. So the way that I keep it simple, I remember that there are actually human beings that filled out those forms. Okay. Um, now, actually, and I apologize, I went a little too fast. So just so you understand just a little bit about me. So yes, I got started in 2020 when I was pregnant. My first year, which was in 2020, I was able to do 150,000 and I was pregnant. Then in 2021, which was last year, not pregnant, I was able to do 475,000. That was all face to face. And then I recently started out with telesales, so I'm most certainly not your telesale expert. I think that's one of the reasons why I'm doing the in-home clinic today, so I can most certainly help you out with the in-home face-to-face. Okay, the most I've done in telesale is about 28,000, which is still great, but it's just not my peak of face-to-face, which was 85,000 per month. And a lot of people always think that it takes a lot of crazy backflips to be able to get to that kind of production. It doesn't. Really, it's just a combination of very high activity. I mean, 6 days a week of work, and just a very specific process on the phone and in a home. All right. So again, everything starts with the phone. If I don't set up the phone the right way, most likely my in-homes are probably not going to work out because it comes down to what you say to the customers on the phone. At the end of the day, those customers filled out a form online for life insurance. We only call leads here at Family First Life, meaning people that actually filled out forms to acquire life insurance. Okay. So when I call that customer, it's very straightforward, right? I immediately just go straight to the point. They answer the phone. I say, hey, Julie. Yep, this is Julie. Hey, Julie, my name is Sandra. If it's a final expense lead, Senior Benefits Center right here in Tampa, Florida. Just getting back to you about that form you filled out online, or that form you hand filled out and mailed in, or that form that you just filled out on Facebook, wherever that lead is coming from, right? I reference back to it so I can do a third party piggyback, right? That's my credibility. So they can differentiate between telemarketers and me, which I'm their field underwriter that's assigned to them. Okay. I'm just getting back to you about that form you just filled out online. You put down here that your birthday is April 4th, 1965. Is that correct? Yep, that's correct. Okay, great. Well, Julie, if you can remember, all you were trying to do is just figure out if you qualify for the different life insurance programs. Okay. Now, I'm the licensed field underwriter that's actually assigned to you. So my job is pretty simple. What I take care of for you is just a couple things. First things first, approval, right? Obviously, everyone wants it, Julie. Unfortunately, not everyone can get approved for it. It is based on health. And then the second thing I take care of, I compare all of the companies that are out there against each other, make sure they're giving you the best possible payment for your budget. Takes around 10 minutes to get you the information you ask for. Now, the reason for the call, I'll be dispatched right up in your neighborhood all day tomorrow and on Wednesday, meeting with about 20 different families, pretty much doing the exact same thing for them. So I was just trying to figure out if either tomorrow, Tuesday, or Wednesday works best for me to circle over to 123 Main Street so I can get you the information you asked for and close this thing out. And then just wait. And that's how you book the appointment. That's it. It's very, very straightforward. If they answer back with, "Oh, I can't do tomorrow because I have a doctor's appointment," we both know doctor's appointments don't take 12 hours. So we immediately assume that and go right into it. I got you. What time is your doctor's appointment? 9, 10, 11? I put words in their mouth because if you don't do stuff like that, they spiral out of control naturally. It's just what they do, right? So then I'll answer back with, "Oh, it's 10. Okay, gotcha. So you think you'll be back by maybe around 1 p.m.? Well, no, I don't know because I was going to get some lunch with my girlfriend. Gotcha. So I do want to make sure that you're going to be home when I get there because, again, I do have about 20 families to see and I only have 10-minute time slots available. However, it sounds like that works out good for you too. So why don't I do this? I'll circle over to 123 Main Street sometime between 4 and 5 tomorrow. Is there any reason you would not be home between 4 and 5? Can you hear the verbiage, how that sounds a little bit more assumptive? Yeah. So, and that's it. I already told the customer what I was going to do. A, figure out if they qualify. B, payment. Make sure that I find them the best possible one. I don't tell them I'm just dropping information off, or I'm not telling them anything vaguely like that, because I do want to make sure that when I get there, they understand that they're buying life insurance, right? If I'm
Yes.
just drop, does that make sense?
Yes. Yes.
Um, if I'm just dropping information off, that works well in the beginning. If you want to get yourself in front of a lot of people, you just got to understand that your activity has to be very, very through the roof with that, simply because you're qualifying them less. Does that make sense?
Yeah. I'm
Now,
getting it. I'm getting an incoming call at me.
you're fine. Now, when I get to that customer, I knock on the door, customer opens the door, Julie opens the door. Hi, you must be Julie. I'm Sandra. Nice to meet you. We spoke on the phone. Do you want me to take my shoes off? And that's it. I walk in. As I'm saying it, I walk in. The reason I do that is to take the awkwardness away. We think in the beginning that, we're scared of them. They're scared of us. We do this all day, every day. They do this, once every few years, and they have a stranger come into their home. Now, we also have to understand psychologically that they're the type of people to do fill out forms online to then have strangers come into their home. But you have to remember that they're more scared of you than the other way around. So when I get there, then it's very simple. Once I'm through the door, I make a little bit of small talk, not like a lot of small talk, not 30 minutes, an hour. You have to understand your job is to sell insurance. It's not to make friends for 3 hours with them. And the reason I say that is because sometimes when we're brand new, we think that that's how we get to the sale, right? Building rapport. So there's a very fine line in between building rapport and making friends for 30, 40, 50 minutes. So how do I build rapport quick? Immediately from the second I walk through the door, oh, beautiful home. How long have you been living here for? If it's not a beautiful home and the entire house is just a mess, I mean, by a mess, I'm talking, 50 cats everywhere, Fruit Loops on the ground. I don't say beautiful home. I just say, how long have you been living here for? I'm me, right? I'm not, we don't want to be someone that we're not. So if they have a beautiful home, beautiful home. How long have you been living here for? Oh, 5 years. Oh, okay. Are you originally from Florida? No, I moved here from Ohio. Gotcha. What made you move to Florida from Ohio? Oh, I just want to be closer to my kids. Gotcha. Well, I understand. Beats shoveling snow now, doesn't it? Oh, yeah, definitely. And then I tell them about, how I moved to Florida from Connecticut 5 years ago. And I lived in New York my first 5 years in the States. I moved from Germany. More about them than about me, right? Because people like to talk about themselves more. So I keep my focus on them. And then if I feel that, the conversation is really, they're dragging out the small talk, I will cut it off and blame myself. Oh, I'm so sorry, I got distracted. Anyways, so tell me more. Most people, Julie, that usually fill out that form online for the different life insurance programs. And if you can hear, I'm saying it again, for the different life insurance programs, I'm very straightforward, very, very clear. Because what I want to avoid is I don't want to be 30, 40 minutes into my appointment and for them to then realize, oh, wait, this is for life insurance? I didn't know this was for life insurance. I thought you were coming here to give me my stimulus check, right? So I avoid all possible crazy objections that could come up. So, Julie, tell me more. Most people that usually fill out the different forms online for the life insurance programs, they usually fill it out for a couple of different reasons. Either they don't really have anything in place and they just need my help to get something started, or they do have something in place, but it's not enough and we need to add more, or what we have right now is too expensive and we need to save money. So which situation were you in when you filled that form out? Now, a couple different things happen here. Either they are very straightforward with you too, and they immediately tell you, such as, oh, I don't have anything, Sandra. I just need to get something started. Okay, great. That's an easy one. We can now move forward with our process. Sometimes it doesn't go that way, and they answer with weird things like, oh well, I just want to get some information. Okay, well, You filled out the form online. You then picked up my call. I know you also had 15 other phone calls from telemarketers, but you agreed to book an appointment with me. You then open the door, let me into your home. I'm now sitting on your couch, and you're telling me you just want some information. It's not something the customer's walls are up psychologically. Does that make sense? So the way I respond is, okay, I got you some information. I understand. Now, do we have something in place right now? We just need to add more. My job's to get you that information. Or do we have nothing and we just need to get something started? So nonchalantly, but very straightforward, I pretty much just asked the same question again, but in a different way, because I'm not going to allow the customer to take me out of my process. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So what we want to imagine is we want to imagine our process, which stands for what we're supposed to do when we're in the home, as a straight line, okay? And all of the words that we're supposed to use to keep us in our process, they stay right here. Any words outside of that process, they're around it, right? They're orbiting around our straight line. And it's our job as professionals, when those words outside of our orbit come out of the customer's mouth, to reel them back in and come back into our process. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So the customer basically didn't answer my question, so I forced the customer to answer my question because that's my job, right? My job is to solve their problem. The only way that I solve the problem is by knowing what we're trying to accomplish. It makes a very big difference whether the customer has nothing or has something, because that's how we know what we need to sell the customer. Customers don't know what they need. We know what they need. We're the professionals. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
And you'll learn that. You'll learn that. It's very, in the beginning, it's very bread and butter. It's all pretty much the same stuff. So again, I forced the customer into that box. Which box are you in, Mr. Customer? Right? Which category do you fall in? Which situation do you fall in? Do we have something? We need to add more, or do we have nothing? And do we just need to get something started? And then it comes out, oh, well, I was trying to, leave my daughter a little bit of money behind. I want to make sure that she doesn't have to, pay for the funeral. Got it. Okay, now I know why I'm here. That's the emotion. That's all of it. A little bit of, just want to get some information. That's not the problem. The daughter not being left behind with the burden, that's the problem. And that's our job, to solve that problem. Understood, Julie. Okay. Now your daughter, what's her name? Sonia. Okay, Sonia. Does she live here in Florida, or is she back in Ohio? Oh no, she's in Ohio. Oh, I understand now. Okay. So Sonia would also have to take time away from her job. She'd have to fly down to Florida unless she drove down, which that in itself is a 3 to 4 day trip, right? So really what I'm doing is I'm building value in the insurance. So that way we're not just selling $6,000 cremations, which, you're
Yeah.
lucky in the beginning. If you get a 60 or 55-year-old, they'll be like $50 a month, right? So, or 30 or $40. We don't want that. We want to build value so we can, sell the customer what they really need, and also to make sure that we as professionals make money. So that's what I do there. I'm basically, do you have any experience in the restaurant industry? No. So, when you go to restaurants, the servers usually upsell you appetizers and
I know what upselling is, yeah.
oh, perfect. Okay. So that's all I'm doing right here, right? I'm not just trying to sell the cremation. I'm also trying to sell the plane ticket to come to Florida, right? The person to clean out the apartment, all of the stuff, because those are real expenses. People really do have to pay for that stuff, right? I mean,
Oh, yeah, I know. Plus
so
medical bills and yeah.
oh, it's
medical
never
bills,
ending.
airplane flight, yeah.
Exactly. It's never ending. So now after the customer has answered that and I have acknowledged the actual problem, now we can move forward in our process, okay? Which is actually solving that problem. Got it, Julie. So just like I stated over the phone, so my job is pretty simple. And again, we'll be done here in about 5-10 minutes. Doesn't take that long. I take care of two things for you, okay? First things first, I take care of the approval, right? Obviously, everyone wants it, Julie. Unfortunately, not everyone can get approved for it. It is based on your health, okay? And then the second thing that I take care of for you is going to be the payment. Obviously, it has to fit in a budget and can't be a dollar more. So my job is to compare all of the companies that are out there against each other, make sure they're giving you the best possible payment for your budget, okay? So I'm going to help you fill out that application so we can submit that request for coverage into the insurance company here in a couple of minutes. Now, because the approval is based on your health, what we're going to do is we're going to go through a quick health questionnaire together where I basically just ask you some health questions, okay? And then once we figure out what makes the most sense for your monthly budget, I will then take the death benefit and match that budget. And like I said, compare all of the companies that are out there against each other, make sure that I not only find you the best possible payment for your budget, but also ensure that I find you the highest possible death benefit across all companies based on whatever payment you have to stay within on a monthly basis, okay? Now, I want to freeze at this point right here. I said this for I said a lot of words here for a few different reasons. If you didn't notice, I kept emphasizing that I'm going to take whatever monthly budget they have to stay within, and obviously it can't be a dollar more, and I'll match death benefit to it, and I'll compare all the companies that are out there against each other. I'm already assuming that price will be an objection that will come up. So I'm going to nip it in the bud before it comes up because I don't want to avoid the pricing. And then in the end, 30, 40 minutes in, the customer says, oh, I can't afford it. Well, the customer can't say to me that they can't afford it because I'm about to make them tell me what they can afford. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
So pricing will never be an objection if you set it up just that way. And I'm going to show you in just a few moments how I set it up that way. Now, the reason why I say my job is to compare all of the companies that are out there against each other is because I'm trying to avoid the shopping objection. If you don't tell the customer that you're going to compare all of the companies that are out there against each other, they're going to say, I still need to shop around, make sure I'm getting the best price. Does that make sense? So I say it because we as professionals know that all insurance companies are pretty much the same, right? In regards to pricing. They're all state regulated. One insurance company can't just charge you $300 a month for the very same $10,000 that a different insurance company, does that make sense?
Oh, yeah.
They can't.
Yeah.
They can't. What makes them different is what they approve you for health-wise. We know that as professionals, but trying to explain all of this stuff to a customer, there's no point. They're customers for a reason, right? So I, as the professional in the home, I make the executive decision to tell the customer that it's my job to shop them all against each other. Even though I already know it's pretty much the same thing, I say it. Because if you don't say it, they will say it in a way that you don't want them to say it, okay? That's it. Now, we're right there. At this point, the customer will be nodding their head or they'll be verbal. Okay, yes, that makes sense. So now I continue with my process, okay? All right, Julie. Now, once I submit that request for coverage into the insurance company here in a couple of minutes, the insurance company is going to verify 3 things on you, okay? First things first, they'll verify your identity, meaning they just need to make sure that you're Julie Smith, okay? Just make sure you're not a terrorist. And that's the part where they usually laugh. They think it's funny. Second, they'll verify your health. Basically, just make sure that you didn't have a heart attack yesterday, okay? And then the third thing, banking verification. The insurance company just has to make sure that if you are approved based on your health, that they'll be drafting their first premium out of your bank account and not your neighbor's, okay? So this is the part where they laugh too, but this is also the part where they psychologically normalize giving me a voided check in about 3 minutes, okay? So if they're nodding their head right here, you have a sale because I'm about to ask them for their driver's license, which would be perfectly normal because I already told them that the insurance company will be doing an identity verification. I'm about to ask them a bunch of health questions, which I just told them that the insurance company is going to check the health. And 4 minutes ago, I told them we're going to do a health questionnaire. So it's not going to be a surprise. And I'm about to ask them for the voided check, which I literally just told them that the insurance company is going to have to verify that it's their bank account, not their neighbors, and that's where they'll be drafting the payment out. Does that make sense? So none of these things are going to be a surprise when I ask for them in a few minutes. So now customer nodded their head. Yes. Okay, great. Now, if Julie, we get a green check mark, which is basically your approval based on your health, the insurance company, depending on which one it'll be, because remember, 3 minutes ago, we told them we're shopping, right? Depending on whichever one it's going to be, they'll be drafting their first premium within the first 1 to 7 business days. And then the paper policy itself will hit your mailbox, I would say maybe about a week later, give or take. Now, keep in mind, Julian, this is something I tell all of my families, as much as those insurance companies need to think about whether they want to approve your health today, once that paper policy, that's assuming we get approved, once that paper policy hits your mailbox, that will then give you the opportunity to think about if you want to keep that insurance company for 30 days. If for whatever reason you decide that you don't want to keep that insurance company, then obviously legally they're required to just refund you your first premium back and you part ways as friends. Does that make sense? And then they say yes. So now I immediately move into everything. Before I start filling out the application, I immediately ask the customer, okay, Julie, for the application, can you please go ahead and get me your driver's license for the identity verification? And can you please go ahead and get me your, for the banking verification, can you please go ahead and get me your voided check, but make sure it's voided, that's for your security. Now, this is the part where they either just get up and go do it, or there's a stutter, there's a hiccup, such as check, voided check. Yes, remember for the banking verification, I need a voided check, but make sure it's voided. That's for your security. And then usually they just go and get it. There's no there's nothing to it. There problems with bank account routing numbers start if you stutter, if you act awkward, if you put verbal emphasis on the word social security number, routing number, account number. Don't do it. I say it in the same tonality as I say, what's your first name, last name, or date of birth, or whatever. Does that make sense?
Mm. Yeah.
That's how it needs to sound. So when I go through the application, how do you spell your first name? How do you spell your last name? Got it. Date of birth. Okay. How long have you been at this address for? 5 years. Okay, great. Email address. Boom. Phone number. Done. Social. Done. It's all in the same tonality. However, if I say, now what's your social security number, Julie? Sounds like a scam, right? Right. So that's the difference. I also don't say, please go ahead and give me a bank account routing number. I say, give me a voided check. Why do I say, give me a voided check and not give me a bank account routing number? No one even uses checks these days anymore. I say it for psychological reasons. The majority of our clients, it's middle-class America, and a lot of us, when we first start out, it's final expense, and when we continues with final expense. Most 60 and 70-year-olds associate a voided check with this person can't steal from me. This person can't steal my identity, can't steal my bank account. Does that make sense? So that's why I say it, because it psychologically triggers safety. Make sense?
If it's voided, yeah. You can't use it. Yeah.
Can't use it. Exactly. So that's why I say all of those things. And then that's it. They go get me their driver's license, their voided check, and I get right to it. I'm in my application, in my financial inventory sheet, I gather everything. Okay, any history, obviously in the beginning, when you first start out, this part is a little bit slower, but with time, you just learn to speed up. You memorize all the questions on the applications. Any history of heart attack, stroke, cancer? No. Okay. Any liver or kidney failure? No. Brain tumors, Huntington's disease, Lou Gehrig's, Alzheimer's. Obviously you're not in a wheelchair. You're not using a cane. You're not, on an oxygen tank. That's pretty much it. Any complications of diabetes, such as insulin shock, amputations, right? Those are all of the questions that with time you memorize, because they're pretty much the same on all of the questions, especially if you're starting out with final expense. It's all going to be whole life coverage. We always start out with America. America is our premier carrier for a lot of different reasons. One, they're the best for the client, okay? They're also the best for the agent as well. They issue probably about 60 to 70% of the business. That's a lot. That's a lot, right? They also pay you, the agent, very fast. If I sell a policy today, it'll be on my commission statement tomorrow, in the bank the next day. They also pay a 10% bonus on your production every 6 months. That's phenomenal, right? We have a great relationship with Americo. That means a lot. When there are challenges down the road with clients, you never know. It's all about building relationships, right? If I get declined with Americo, I immediately hop into Prosperity. I understand we have about 30 different carriers. We don't use them all. Those are for the 5%, right? The unicorn health situations. When you first start out, it would be very crazy to come across all unicorn situations right away. As new agents, we always want to branch out and try all of the cool carriers and stuff like that. I strongly recommend trying out the carrier that approves the most clients the fastest and pays you the agent the fastest. Your family will thank you. America first. If you get declined, go to Prosperity. Okay. Now, this is basically it. Sometimes people wonder, there must be more to it. There's really not. It's a very, very simple process. I keep it very meat and potatoes in the home. I keep it very meat and potatoes on the phone too. It's what allows me to keep my mind clear and to keep volume high. By volume, I mean production, quantity, and apps, right? I don't write a lot of high annual premiums simply because I know I service middle class America, so I keep it somewhere between 80 to 120 bucks a month. They can relate it to a utility bill. It's fair to assume that out of the 475,000 that I issued last year, fair to assume that I probably have about 450 apps that issued. That's how in line my $1,000, $1,500 APs are per policy, just because I try to keep it right there and I control it. Okay. So now, next question, how do we control payments? So I give customers options, and all options are in my favor and in the customer's favor. So what I do is I say, Julie, most families that I help out every single month, and I help about 500 families a month, they usually try to stay within one of three budget brackets or ranges per se, just for the sake of making sure that they can still sleep well at night while paying the bills and making sure that the life insurance is taken care of. Those budget ranges are either 80 to about $120 per month, 120 to about $180 per month, or 180 to about 240, 260 per month. Which one of those ranges would you need to stay within to make sure that this still fits in the budget? And then they tell you immediately, okay? Now, be very careful when you have, depending on the customers that you're helping, the 80 to 120, I mean, it's a good range, especially for middle class America. The reason I do those three ranges is because sometimes customers surprise you what they actually pick. Sometimes customers they'll tell you immediately, oh my God, I can't afford any of that. Oh, okay, no problem. And I divert, right? I deflect. How old are you? Oh, 57. I see. Okay. Well, the lowest ones I've seen for a 57-year-old, depending on your health, it's about 50 bucks a month. If it was somewhere around 50 bucks a month, you feel that that's something that you can afford every month to make sure Julie does not get left with the burden. And I say it just like that because we need to remember why we're there. When we start going into payments and price and face month, it's very easy to lose sight of why we're there. We need to make sure that Sonia, the daughter, doesn't get stuck with the burden of those final expenses. Okay. So that's pretty much it. You can always walk your way down. You just can't go back up, you know?
Right.
I think we can open it up for some questions.
For me, is it okay?
Of course. That's what we
Okay.
got.
Well, I didn't know you're recording. I know. So I was thinking, you would ask them how much coverage they wanted, for the burial, the cremation, or whatever, and possible medical expenses, if they had a figure in mind. Do you do that?
I used to do it. The reason I stopped doing it is simply because of sticker shocks. A lot of customers, when I would walk in, it would be, well, I want 30,000, 25,000. Well, if I have a bunch of 60 or 70-year-olds and their budget's 50 bucks a month, 25,000 is going to put me somewhere around, I don't know, 130 bucks a month. So customers are very flighty, right? Customers are very like, oh my God, if I can't get 25,000, I don't want anything. Okay, well, you just left Tanya with the burden. Don't you think that something's a whole lot better than nothing? But you got to understand, now I'm backpedaling. Does that make sense? These words, these word tracks, they're phenomenal closes when they're said before the objection comes, because that now they're preventative. But if I say them after the objection has come, I'm just backpedaling. I'm just fighting, right? Now I'm using, I mean, it's solid pressure. It's solid sales closing pressure. I don't like selling that way. I mean, it's how I was trained to sell in the car business, which is my background when I sold cars on the floor. But then when I moved into finance, you have to have a different approach. It's a lot more finesse, and the finesse comes from not being a hardcore,
right,
high pressure salesman. You can't do that in finance. I mean, you bought cars before, after you've purchased the car and you go into a finance office, the last thing you want is to be pressured. So you still bought a bunch of warranties, but you didn't buy them because they pressured you. That you bought them because they made it make sense. So that's my job. My job is to make it make sense. So I'm not going to make it make sense by backpedaling. So the reason I do that is their budget is what their budget is, right? This is an emotional sale. So what happens is if their budget allows them to have $6,000 in coverage or $8,000 in coverage, but they really want $25,000 in coverage, if they bump themselves on payment and they do not freak out, backpedal, and just close the whole thing down, I know that they're over budget. We're triple over budget. They're gonna cancel. It's a guaranteed chargeback ratio, right?
Right.
If they're
You don't want to oversell because they'll just drop it and you'll be. The other question I had that came up, you said that they're going to get something in the mail. And do you follow back up with them during that 30-day period of time to make sure they're going to carry through with it, or?
No, I probably can do a better job with follow-ups. That's not my strong suit, so I should probably not be the one to train on follow-ups. I blame it on high volume. I mean, 475 grand a year, probably about 450 apps. You figure I sat with about 1,000 customers running about 30 to 40 appointments a week. I was operating on, 10, 12-hour days, 6 days a week, just acquiring new business, definitely not maintaining.
And had a baby.
Right.
You were operating on fumes, girl.
I know. Yes. So definitely follow-up definitely was not my strong suit. Still isn't. So don't ask me to train on follow-up.
Well, no, you wouldn't need to worry about that then. You're just keep going on next. You keep saying next, right?
Literally just next. But I mean, my persistency is 70 to 80%. So it's not, I still get my bonuses, which you need a good persistency to get your bonuses. Oh, we didn't cover mortgage. So mortgage, I mean, it's very similar. It starts the exact same way, well, not the exact same way. I mean, at the end of the day, there's still a need, right? And that need. So I immediately go, and if you do work aged mortgage leads or new mortgage leads, I go in with the lead sheet. That's always printed on mortgage, right? Because most likely it's handwritten. That's powerful. Handwritten leads, if you can print it. And then that's it. I put the lead on the table after my 5 minutes of small talk. Okay, Jim, so obviously you sent the form in, a mortgage protection form, to make sure someone doesn't get stuck holding a bag at the end of the mortgage. That's if, I mean, I adjust to my environment. If there's a wife there, I immediately say, obviously you sent the form to make sure Suzanne doesn't, get stuck holding a bag at the end of the day with the mortgage. If there's no one in the house, I say someone, because now I'm trying to figure out what's going on here, like
right.
Who are we trying to protect? Obviously, you sent the form to make sure someone doesn't get stuck holding a bag at the end of it with the mortgage. Now is that a child, a spouse? I ask, because sometimes the spouse is not there and I accidentally booked the one-legged appointment. And then they tell you, oh no, it's for my daughter. I want to make sure my daughter can keep the house. Oh, okay. Now is your daughter here in Florida? Is she in another state? No, she's here in Florida. Oh, okay. Got it. Okay. And then I immediately bridge into the exact same process from before. Jim, my job is to take care of a couple things for you. Approval and payment, right? And I immediately dig into the problem. And then, I mean, you adjust accordingly. If it's, a very young customer, young, under 50, healthy, you can immediately jump into, selling balance protection. If you got a 70-year-old in front of you and you're looking at a $250,000 mortgage balance, be very careful, selling term immediately, because you may not be able to get approved. And the worst thing in the world is to sell something you can't sell. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You don't want to verbally sell it and you can't actually sell it because they can't qualify for it. Then you have to go into equity protection, which equity protection, all that means is I can approach equity protection in two different ways. Let's say client has $150,000 balance, 15, call it $1,000 mortgage, and $200,000 in equity. I hone on the equity. Jim, we have $200,000 worth of equity to protect in this home. Let me ask you this. Your daughter, Julie, have you ever had this conversation with her? would you want to stay in this home after you pass? Would you want to sell the home and run with the equity? What would she do? Well, I think she'd probably just sell it. Got it. Okay. Well, at the end of the day, we have $200,000 worth of equity protect. Now, don't get me wrong, knock on wood. Let's say, God forbid, you pass away tomorrow. It's fair to assume Julie can throw the house on the market and she'll probably sell this house within 1 hour, right? The way the market is right now. The problem is we don't know when you die. If God forbid you die during the market like it was in 2008, if you can remember, right, the recession, people were sitting on houses for 1, 2, 3 years. That's just to break even. And then they nod their heads. I do this to instill fear into them. And the reason I do that is because this is real stuff, right? Because if you don't do this, some customers will immediately chime in with the objection of, oh, well, I can just sell it. She can just sell the house and she'll get $200,000. I'm good, you know? Well, no, we don't know when you're going to die. This is a big deal, right? So immediately I tell Jim, that's all we're trying to do. We need to protect $200,000 worth of equity, but really we need to protect ourselves from markets like it was in 2008. Because if God forbid you die during that kind of market, Julie's not selling this house in 1 month or 1 hour. She may have to make this mortgage payment for 2 years. Now, I don't care how well she's off. No one wants to take on an extra $1,000 mortgage payment plus utilities to maintain a home and then give it somewhere TLC to be able to sell it for when it's actually ready to be sold. Does that make sense? And then I sell the equity protection. So usually what we do in those scenarios, what most people do in your scenario, what most people do above the age of 50, whatever they are, that's the scenario that I use. Does that make sense? Because psychologically, people like to do what other people do. So if they're 50, above the age of 50, which all of our customers are above the age of 50, what most people do above the age of 50, they do this because of that and that. So let's go into this and that, what that actually means. What we usually try to do is we try to leave the kids at least somewhere in between 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 24, 36 months worth of mortgage payments completely paid for, because that gives Julie plenty of time to sell the home, give it TLC. Really what it does, it gives her the freedom to do whatever she wants to do, okay? That's really it at the end of the day. So the reason I said 6, 9, 12, 15, 18, 24, 36 months, I might as well just said, we'll do whatever. We'll do whatever your budget gets you. But that obviously doesn't sound great. So I'm not going to say that. But I've opened myself up to all budget options because I don't, especially if I have a 70-year-old, with time, not in the beginning, obviously, with time, you start calculating in your head how old the customer is in front of you, what the premium is going to come out to, what they can really afford. If you're sitting in front of a 70-year-old customer and you can already smell that they cannot afford more than about whatever, $65 a month or $70 a month, believe me, the last thing that you want to do is tell this customer that you're going to get them either $250,000 in coverage that's about to be $1,500 a month, or that, I mean, that's worst case scenario. Second worst scenario would be for you to tell the customer they can get 4 years of mortgage payments or 3 years of mortgage payments for that very same payment. And in reality, you can really just get them 6 months. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
So
yeah, absolutely.
What was that?
I said absolutely, yeah, it does.
So I'm trying to make the customer feel great about the little bit of protection that he may leave his daughter behind. That's all I'm doing here. The worst thing in the world is to walk into a dealership, to have an inexperienced salesman sell you the Rolls Royce of the dealership, and then you fill out your credit application and they tell you that you really can't buy a Rolls Royce, which not many people can. Really what you can afford is a Ford Focus, which is $250 a month. You're not going to buy the car. You're going to walk out and you're going to go to the dealership 5 minutes down the road and you're going to go buy a Ford Focus and ask them for a Ford Focus to save face. So that's all we're doing here. We're going to make the customer feel great about buying what they can afford. Does that make sense?
Right, absolutely.
Because look, all I'm doing is if the customer has $1,000 mortgage payment, they're 70 years old, and I'm trying to leave them a year worth of mortgage payments, they'll probably put me somewhere around $80 a month, right? Somewhere around there. Now, if I just said 3 minutes ago, the bare minimum what we want to have, Mr. Customer, is 6 months of mortgage payments with of time for your daughter. And I can now get him 12 months of mortgage payments. I'm a hero. And he feels phenomenal about leaving his daughter 12 months of mortgage payments behind. In comparison to, oh yeah, I'll get you 3 years of mortgage payments. You can't afford that one. I'm sorry. You can only get 3 months.
Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. So do you ask people for referrals?
I started recently. I have to get better at that. There's actually a video by Andrew Taylor posted it. I think it was a week ago. If you go on the Family First Life USA Instagram page, he posted one with an agent that did $100,000 last month, and a very good percentage of that was referrals. So that's your guy right there. That's the video you want to watch.
What is it again? Family First, FFL what?
Family First Life USA. If you just go on YouTube and look for Andrew Taylor, or just go on the Instagram page, you'll find it. It's one of the last few videos he posted. You can't miss it. It'll literally say $100,000.
I don't usually use Instagram too much, so it's Andrew Taylor Instagram.
Yeah, Family First Life USA. All right, let's open it up for questions on the in-home. How you doing, Art?
Good. How are you, Sandra?
Good.
Hey, question. When you were new, how many leads were you buying? And then by how many did you start increasing as you got experienced?
I would do about 70 leads per dial day, setting up my next 2 run days.
Okay.
So I would be in the field 4 days, dial 2 days. So Monday I would get 70 leads, 70 to 100, give or take. And then to be in the field Tuesday, Wednesday, and then Thursday dialing another 70 leads, be in the field Friday, Saturday.
Got it. Gotcha. So basically about 140 a week.
Give or take, yeah. Of course, sometimes you have overflow. Sometimes it changes and, you have to throw 40 in a garbage. But, I mean, it's a good rule of thumb because you can account for bad numbers, things like that.
Gotcha. And then another question. So when you're giving the customer the options, $50 for this coverage, $100, 150. Now, are you going to like America or something, coding them and then giving that numbers, or are you kind of like throwing those numbers out there to see what they qualify for?
I just throw the numbers out, kind of like you fish.
No, but I've done it before.
It's like throwing a hook out there to see where they're gonna bite. That's all I'm doing there. So I don't go on a specific carrier quote or anything because I can't. There's no point to do that because you don't know if they can get it. The worst thing to do is to give a customer a quote that is about to change because they can't really get that one. Does that make sense?
Right.
So I throw the ranges out simply so I can see where they're gonna bite on the budget, but I don't talk about the death benefit. Does that make sense?
Got it.
Because the death benefit, I mean, it's not going to vary by hundreds of thousands of dollars. And be clear, I absolutely set the stage that they're not getting hundreds of thousands of dollars if we're talking about final expense here. And, I have a 60 or 70 or 80-year-old in front of me. So by the time I'm done, if they say, okay, I can only afford $80 a month, or you know what, Sandra, the first range is good, the $80 to $120 a month. And then I say, okay, so if it's somewhere around $110 a month, like that's something that fits in a budget, right? And they're like, yeah, I can see that's a very lax customer. I'm not going to have much pushback. So now when I go through the application and everything, and it comes out to a total of $18,000, I immediately tell them, okay, congratulations, you got approved based on the budget that you told me to stay within. Congratulations, right? We got approved based on our health. It came out to a total natural death benefit of $18,000 plus the accidental that's included in it. That totals it to $36,000 because with America, you get the accidental and all of that. And even with Prosperity, I still click the button on the accidental to add it because it's literally like a $2 difference. So why not give it to them? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Got it. And then you kind of know the underwriting, right? You don't or do you go to like the underwriting genie to see what company is the best one to start with?
No, because for a few different reasons. One, 60% of my business, 60 to 70% of my business is gonna go with America anyways. They're gonna approve it. Two, if I can't get them, it's gonna go to Prosperity. They're not, I mean, maybe 5% of the time it's unicorn situations where it's like, oh my God, this is a 40-year-old with, you know, all these health issues. I can't even go guaranteed issue anywhere. I mean, does that make sense?
Yeah.
I mean, the knockout questions, they're pretty much the same. Any history of heart attack, stroke, cancer? No. Oxygen, wheelchair? No. Right? Those are the big ones. Insulin diabetic. I mean, all of this stuff. Cancer. Okay, how many occurrences of cancer? On the America application, there's a question. Any more than one occurrence of cancer, right? After doing the same application so many times, you're gonna remember the questions. And it's
Yeah.
all the big stuff. You know what I mean?
Yeah. And the other questions, do you ask them like one by one in details, or do you just kind of like click no, 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 no? Unless if, of course, when you were filling out the sheet, the sheet that we got, that asked like for different medical questions. It's a complimentary sheet. Unless you ask,
So, so you have, it, I don't go to it line by line by
yeah,
line, right? If I did that, I would be like an optical interview taking 18 minutes just to go through that. I don't do that. It's all about efficiency too. However, that's why you ask the knockout questions. Me saying any history of heart attack, stroke, cancer, oxygen, wheelchair, Huntington's, liver, kidney failure, Alzheimer's, brain tumors is the same thing as saying, have you ever had a history or diagnoses of blah, you know what I mean?
yeah, got
So
it.
you have to remember, these customers, they don't have the patience to be there for 5 hours. You got to be quick. That's one of the reasons why I don't go through all the genies and the stuff. And it will not make a difference to the customer if you can save them $2 because you can go with Foresters, but it's a longer application, or Royal Neighbors of America. Instead of just going with American Prosperity, where you can fly through the apps like this and it's done and you're out and you're on to the next. That's the difference in between surviving and succeeding and being out of business because we're hanging out with the customers for too long. Yeah, we're eating pretzels and drinking cappuccinos, but with time you learn you have to pile in volume. The only way you pile in volume, you have to do a lot of them quick, very quick. You're not going to be able to do a lot of them if you spend more than an hour and a half with a customer. You got 45 minutes. That's it.
Gotcha. What
Makes
about
sense?
Mutual of Omaha? What do you think about them as far as getting approved and all that?
I don't use them.
You don't use them, really?
It's a 19-page application. I don't have the patience for a 19-page application. If they change their software, yeah, I might use them. But I mean, yeah, they give better prices, but I mean, is it worth it to save a customer $3 so I can go through a 19-page application? No.
Yeah. Oh, I see. So America is that easy. So basically, I wrote this IUL, and the guy is 60 years old, healthy, not taking any medications. About 8 years ago, he got declined based on his medical history. And we put that like he got declined. And then Mutual of Omaha said, underwriting needed. So it's been taking about 7-8 business days, and then they did a phone interview with the client. And then they declined him based on the questions that he answered, and the questions were answered on the application. And I was like, what the hell? Like 6 years old, like getting declined. This is an IUL policy though. So I was thinking, sure, like would America would be easier, or Prosperity for this guy.
You want my honest opinion?
Yeah.
Do you have your first 100,000 under your belt?
No.
Don't write any IULs until you have 100 grand under your belt.
Oh, okay.
None. There's IULs is advanced market. Your main objective right now should be to write bread and butter, which is straight life insurance, because you need to get paid. You're not going to get paid on IULs. Like you are, but I mean, those are backflips. Does that make sense?
Yeah.
They're like, they go in the same category as annuities. You write a bunch of Americo, so you get paid. And if you can't get them done through Americo, get them done through Prosperity. There's no reason you should be selling IULs if you don't have your first 100 grand. And I say this because I want your family to make money.
Yeah, that's the thing. I'm like, oh shoot, like, and I do it on a very like super part-time basis. I'm like, shoot, I want to get paid on this so I can buy more leads.
I get it. You need to get paid. Don't sell IULs if you want to get paid.
Okay.
Everything. Push everything through Americo. Everything. You want to get paid, put it on Americo.
America.
I know that other companies have better advertising and marketing and all the stuff, and they got backpacks and t-shirts and all the stuff. Don't sell them.
Okay.
19 pages. No one has the time for 19 pages. How long did it take you to fill out the application? 45 minutes?
Yeah. I mean, it's a long, super. Yeah.
I get it. I feel your pain. Don't fill them out.
All right. Cool. Awesome. Thanks, Sandra.
You're welcome. All right. Anybody else? We got 5 minutes for questions.
I have a question. So what type of leads do you recommend to buy it first?
Let's see. EverQuote leads, they're great. I strongly recommend door knocking them too. They're cheap and are great if you go into the CRM as well. New Internet Life, Instance. Gosh, I made a lot of money on Instance. That was my
internet leads.
That was my main survival lead for months. And door knocking is huge. No one door knocks. Or at least it's, I don't know why, it's going out of style. No one door knocks, which is why it's phenomenal. You have no competition. No one will show up to these people's houses. That's phenomenal.
Do they buy?
Of course they buy. They buy a lot. They're the ones that don't answer the phone because they think you're the Florida water softener or the solar guy.
You're funny.
Oh, thank you.
Sandra, is there an app you use to put the addresses to kind of like go door knock?
Yes, good question. That's a huge moneymaker. Write this down, Road Warrior. And make sure you get the paid membership for 15 bucks a month. It's all the difference in the world. That's the difference between 7 addresses into one route and you having the capability to put in 140 addresses in one route. So you ask, well, what's the difference? I'll just do 7 at a time. It's a very big difference because if you take 50 addresses within like a 10-mile radius, well, if you can only plug in 7, you get them one here, one there, one here, one here, one here. And then you take the next ones. You can't be efficient enough, but if you plug in all of them at the same time, you'll literally have all addresses like minutes apart from each other.
Nice.
That's how you can make it through like 15, 25 door knocks a day.
Okay. Road Warrior. Okay.
Road Warrior. Yes.
All right. Perfect.
Okay. All right, guys. Anybody else have any questions?
One more question. When you door knock, do you like call them or are you just out of the blue?
Out of the blue.
That's what I'm talking about.
Make sure you leave a sticky note.
Oh, if they don't answer.
Yes, they call you back, I promise. And they
Really?
thank you. Yes, some of them really thank you for actually coming by because they don't answer any phone calls.
Hey, if you get tired of the phones, you can always like go door knock.
Yes, absolutely.
All right, thank you.
You are very welcome. Thank you so much, everyone. I hope everyone's going to have a great rest of the evening, right?
You
Thank
too.
you.
You too.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye-bye.
Bye.